Hi, everyone. This is Dustin Hall, the Associate Director of High School Admissions for Sullivan University. I'm really happy to announce that this month's admissions training topic is virtual engagement. As we continue to work and engage with one another in a virtual environment in response to the COVID-19 outbreak, we are faced with a unique opportunity to stretch our communication skills and utilize new technologies to create more personalized and adaptive experiences and connections for students. Through a variety of virtual platforms, students are able to stay involved with the Sullivan community and take part in a meaningful educational experience. Broadly defined, virtual engagement involves using various online technologies such as Zoom conferencing, social media, and other digital platforms. The conversation you're about to see is a Q&A with Sarah Trail, a veteran Sullivan employee and a remote team member for the last 7 years. Her vast knowledge of virtual engagement will set you up for success as you start your virtual journey.
Hey again, everybody, Dustin here. And I'm with Sarah Trail, who's our National Admissions Advisor, who works 100% remotely. And, and that's one of the things that we're talking about today with virtual engagement and how this, COVID has sort of changed everything, has moved people's cheese, if you will, on how we do things. And one of the things that I appreciate about Sarah is the fact that she's always been very flexible with how she does stuff and how she runs her business. And even for our remote workforce that there's quite a few of, this was a change for us as well. But we wanted to have this conversation because there's a lot of what was being done pre-COVID, and then we sort of doubled down during COVID to get us where we are here today. And with everything sort of shifting here to trying to have more face-to-face connection, I thought it would be a great idea to have Sarah on with me today to talk a little bit about that. So Sarah, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. What I'd like to do is have a real organic conversation with you today and talk about a few different aspects of what virtual engagement means and how it affects our day-to-day business. And I think so overall, for those that aren't familiar with who you are, tell us a little bit about what you do day to day for your students.
Okay, so I am the National Admissions Advisor for Sullivan, and I have worked in this position longer than I was an on-campus admissions advisor. So overall, like I've worked at Sullivan for 11 years, and of the 11 years, let's see, I was on campus for 4, so the rest of it has been all remote. So my job is to bring the best and brightest students from all over the United States to our schools. And I've recruited students from as far away as Guam and Hawaii, and then lots and lots of states in the United States and around. So
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
what I do.
And you get to do it from beautiful Florida.
I do. I live in Sarasota. That's what I was about to say. I live in Sarasota with my 2 kids and my husband, and we have a golden doodle, miniature golden doodle named Biscuit.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about how the virtual world is sort of changing things for everybody. And even post-COVID, a lot of the things that are going on right now are probably more than likely going to stick around. Because I think people have sort of grown adaptive to this idea of a virtual world. And when things do go back to a new normal, if we will, a lot of those things are going to continue to shift because it allows people more options where, they can do stuff in person. But now I know that I have this virtual option, which might have been scary for a lot of people pre-COVID, but now that we've been forced to get used to it, people are going to assume that that's always going to be an option moving forward. So when we talk about, I guess the first thing I would say is, let's talk a little bit about the planning. So when we look at the planning phase of, what you need to have on deck to be effective with virtual engagement, tell me a little bit about what that looks like to you.
So planning wise, I have a couple of things that I use that I've developed that are kind of like my best practices. I have a specific voicemail that I'll leave if I can't reach a student, like how to first like lay the groundwork for like how we handle an admissions appointment. So like where I'm laying the groundwork and setting an expectation for a virtual appointment, like that's they don't know any different. So I might as well set that as like, because that is how we are operating right now.
Right.
So I'm setting it when I leave the first voicemail, or as I'm talking to them on the phone. I've worked out like how I explain our process. And then I have an email too that I send out that also explains my process and the options that they have. So this year, you know, when I'm sending that email, not only is it like, you know, what's a good time and day, what's your schedule like, when can you be home and near with a parent or guardian near your computer, it's also like, what would you like to utilize? Would you like, what are you more comfortable with? Do you like Zoom? Do you like Google Meet? Do you like Teams? So like I'm already laying that groundwork so that they know that there's going to be a virtual component to our process. That's it. And when I'm on the phone with the student and I'm setting the appointment, the interview, right? You know, like saying, okay, so we have two options. Like we can talk, you know, over the phone, and I can walk you through some information. It's kind of boring and you have to do a whole lot of explaining like how to navigate it, or I can navigate it for you and we can actually see each other and like meet each other. So it's like not as weird and awkward. And the students always like, yeah. I was like, cause like, this is a big deal. Like you're thinking about college and your life, and I want to get to know you and support you so that we're in this together, like a team. And I was like, and I always make the joke, like, I will even brush my hair for you because sometimes I don't brush my hair when I'm here by myself. Yeah. So anyways, that's what I do.
No, that's good. And a couple good takeaways there that I got. You talked about Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and Google Meet, which we found are three of the most popular that people use. There's also you know, GoToMeeting and things like that. There's other outliers out there, but there's a lot of different technologies. And I love that you've familiarized yourself with these different mediums. And that's something that I would definitely encourage for admissions advisors as you're watching this, is write those three down, and I'll also put them on the screen as well, is that it's, you know, Zoom, Google Meet, and Microsoft Teams, because giving them that option, it's nice because if you give them an option they're not familiar with, they may not be as willing to do the appointment. Whereas if you name something that they are familiar with, they might be willing to do it. Now, Sarah, you know, something, you know, even in the regional market, we weren't doing face-to-face like this until probably about a year ago. So we started the face-to-face to build more connection. That was sort of our word of the year last year, was connection. And face-to-face was really important, that even if we couldn't see them in person, we wanted to do it face-to-face. And that's what a lot of people are now dealing with as we're sort of transitioning to, you know, everybody needing to do face-to-face meetings. What was that transition like for you? Because even though you were virtual and in the field, it was still different than going from a phone and a PowerPoint deck or something like that to now you're actually seeing people.
Yes. And so I'm not going to lie, probably should, but I was one of the slower adopters for the virtual appointment, like with the video conferencing, because like I had my process down and I was pretty good at it, and I could go through a virtual, like it was memorized. Like I still have it memorized. I see the virtual in my sleep, and the music, oh Lord, the music. So, but I was kind of like, I'm not sure. And then I was really worried that I needed to be on the phone and through Velocify, but how was I going to show my work, you know, if I was doing a Zoom appointment? So I was really nervous about that. But then I did it, like I dove in, and I love it. Now I'm kind of like addicted, because like, instead of having to be like, all right, you're going to type in virtual.sullivan.edu. Oh, you typed it in the Google box. I told you not to type it in the Google box. You got to type it directly in the browser. You know, instead of having to do all that, like I am doing it myself.
Yeah.
And then it also helps, like when I'm, you know, conducting an interview with a student where there might not be a good resource on the virtual itself, I can just have my PowerPoint that I've created for them right there, and they don't know that we don't have a great website for that yet, so, or that it's under construction. So I get to be in charge of what I present and how I present it. And I also love being able to, you know, build a relationship with my students. And sometimes they have their cameras on and sometimes they don't. And that's fine. You know, it's fine. It's just like, if it's turned off, they can still see me and they're still getting something out of that. There's still like some sort of connection that you get, even if you're shut off on your side, you're still kind of connecting. And then eventually I'll be like, look, I'm not going to judge like your hairstyle or whatever. Like, just give me a little peek. Let me see an eyebrow or something, you know? So, and usually by the end of it, we're all laughing and they've turned on their cameras and we're fine. So,
Yeah.
and maybe sometimes that it's also sometimes like where it's just, they're not comfortable with that first initial appointment being entirely like video conference, and that's fine. But I'll do it for retention. Like I'll be like, Papa, we're gonna have a quick call to work on FSAIDs, you know, and I'll have a whole bunch of students come on. And then like Dustin, we did that cool SU Connect for our students that started all online in the summer that we're moving to campus in the fall. And we had our SU Freshman Connect meetings virtually. And, you know, oftentimes they would have their cameras off, but they were still getting, and they were still like talking and chatting and connecting with us. So did I talk too much? Was that okay?
No, that's good. That's all great information. It's, well, a lot of that goes, you know, into that first segment we were sort of looking at with planning. And I think, you know, if we have a good plan, and even if it's something where, you know, you have a good process, you can still have a good process. We're just changing it a little bit to even add more value to what the student's getting. And I also want to point out, you know, with planning, you've got a virtual background. I do not. I've got the Sullivan flag because I don't have a good wall for some reason, and my camera doesn't like to give me a cool way to put a background. But I think that that's important too, that as you're using these virtual arenas, whether it be Teams, Zoom, or Google Meet, they all allow for a nice virtual background like that, and also have a good picture, because when your video is off, it has a spot for a profile picture. And again, it's building these small connections. Yeah, just like that. Absolutely.
There it is.
Having that type of stuff, again, it really helps build that connection. So let's move from planning into what sort of virtual engagement do you do when it comes to, let's start with prospecting, you know, as we're looking at our lead base, and you know, what are some things that you do to sort of put your face or that virtual engagement right in front of them from the beginning?
Well, okay, so a couple of things. So I recorded a very smiley video that introduces myself, and I've shared that with the chef representatives that I work closely with. So like Chef Madden and Chef Jeff and Chef Tardy, they all have this video. So when they're in my territory, they have a video to show the students. And the same thing with Chef Tucker. We built that into his presentation that he used. So they're already like being able to see, like, so this is the person that's going to be calling you. Her name is Sarah Trail, you know, and they'll play the video and they get to meet me right there, like at the first connection. And then I toyed around, and sometimes I send it, sometimes I send something else. But sometimes, like for my IRS leads that I'm not able to connect with immediately, I'll send either the video through an email, you know, as an introduction email where they can click on it and see me, or I'll send it out as a text message too, an introduction. And then as far as prospecting goes, when I'm setting the appointment, I'm going with a virtual appointment with a video connection. Hopefully that's what I'm shooting for. So that's how I set the expectation.
Good. Well, and also,
the prospecting side, I don't know.
No, that's good. And also to brag on you a little bit, you know, Sarah does multiple things, and she just you know, named a few of them there, but she's also great with compelling emails. And when we talk about virtual engagement, you know, a lot of us, we automatically think just video stuff, but it's also being engaged through a lot of different mediums too. So, you know, Sarah sends a lot of great emails. You know, we send out memes that are funny, that could get some sort of reaction, that make people want to respond back. So it's all these different things that are outside of the regular phone call, the regular text, the regular email, you know, that makes people want to open it up, makes people want to take some sort of action. And that's what virtual engagement is about, because, you know, when you're face to face with somebody, they can sort of sense your energy. But it's sort of like what they say about, you know, the TV. If you're on a TV show, you know, the camera adds like 20 pounds or something. It's sort of the same in this world, where it's not the weight thing, but your excitement for what you're doing. If you're in person, it comes across way more to them than when you're in virtual. So you almost have to amp it up even a little bit more to show your passion and show what you're excited about. And that's the same way that we can do it in all these different mediums.
Yeah.
So after prospecting, let's talk a little bit about interviewing. So you sort of opened it up a little bit there, but so you've set the appointment with the student with the expectation that this is going to be a virtual. What's sort of the next steps with that you're going to take to make sure that they have the information they need to log in and all that type of good stuff? And then what's that interview sort of look like?
So, okay, that's a good question. So I have an agenda that I'll write down like Zoom, and I have to make it in big letters and highlight it so that I know I need to brush my hair, put on some makeup, wear a Sullivan shirt, you know, like look fresh for that.
Sure.
So that's like my pre-steps, you know, and then I need to make sure that I'm prepared for whatever they're interested in, you know, so that I have all of the resources there and ready to go for the appointment. What I'll do too is as I'm setting the interview, I make sure that I have a good email, because that's important for me to be able to send them the link for the Zoom meeting. Mm-hmm. And then I go into Zoom. I've got a free account, you know, it's nothing fancy. But I go in and I create the meeting, you know, and then it'll say, you know, copy the invitation, and I copy it and I send it to them, like usually not very far in advance of the appointment, maybe like an hour to 30 minutes before the interview. I'll have all that stuff ready to go, but then I don't copy and paste it until about an hour to 30 minutes, just as a last minute reminder that like, hey, we've got our Zoom interview today. So it kind of does like a double duty for me with that. And then I will start my meeting right at the time that it's scheduled for. And if they don't hop on, I call them through Velocify, or I send them a text message, or I send them an email, like reminder, like, hey, are you having trouble with Zoom? What's going on? You know, and that usually gets something going. We're doing okay. It's gonna be okay. So, and then during the interview, what I'll do is we start out, like I do my interviewing like this, where we're side by side, you know, so I can see them and they can see me. And then at some point I'll screen share, and everything that I'm screen sharing. Oh, I also tidy up my desktop. I make sure that there's nothing funky or, you know, whatever. And I always make sure that my email is closed, because like getting the ding dongs, like it's totally distracting for me. I know we had a ding dong. I have my other laptop open right now, so my bad. But the ding dongs of the emails, I usually try to close those for like the interviews, so I'm not like, what, squirrel, you know? So I've got my desktop nice and tidy, and I share. And then I always have to click those boxes. Remember, like to like share your video, and like, yeah, gotta always remember to click those boxes. And then I go into my screen share, and I usually have like the virtual itself up, or something that I've created. I usually try to do something more than just talking, like a video when I first navigate to the screen share, so that it's like active, like engagement, you know? And then we do more talking, and then active engagement and more talking, so that it's broken up. So it's not just talking at someone, so that you can kind of like have some fun with it. And then once I've navigated them through an important information, you know, like information about their program and their curriculum, the Sullivan advantages, what campus is like, what student housing is like, answered their questions and concerns, talked about the tuition, cost of attendance, admissions process, stuff like that, then we all come back together, and this is how we end our interview face to face. So I can see them like, so what do you think? Like, we talked about it. What don't I know that I should know? You know, like what are you thinking? You know, I can get my last temperature check before I say, you know, that I want to submit them for acceptance and process their application, or guide them through the application itself. So, and then oftentimes, Dustin, if the student isn't, you know, like brand new, like hasn't submitted an application or something, in the chat box, I'll throw in the link to the application itself. So all they have to do is click on it, and then they start doing the application. So
I love it. Well, and I'll tell you, that's what's great about these different types of tech is that you have those options. You know, one of the things that I'll have you talk a little bit about next is sort of all the different events and things that this can be used for as well. But, you know, having the chat section or having the emotion buttons and things like that, these all are other ways to engage your audience and keep them involved. So, you know, so we've talked a little bit about how we can use virtual engagement in interviews. But one of the things that I'm really blessed with this group, the group that you're on, is that there's always so many ideas of events. And, you know, events used to have to be on campus and so forth. But this year we've really sort of blown it out of the water with just opening up the floodgates with virtual events. Tell us, give us a little feedback on some of the virtual events that you might have been involved in, and how admissions advisors, if they have ideas for virtual events, they can just run with those ideas. It doesn't take, you know, an 80-person committee to try and put something together anymore. So talk a little bit about some of those.
well, we've utilized them for so much, from attention to like a one-on-one thing, like to help them with remaining items that need to be completed before move-in, to like, to that move-in call that we did like on the fly, because all of the students were so nervous about like what it was going to look like, what it was going to be like, how they were going to move in, what they needed to know. And we had an email and we had a link that we could send them, but it just felt so big and overwhelming to the students that, I just did it. I think you were on vacation the first time I did it. So I just did it for one batch of students, and then it went well. And we decided to do it with all the other kids. And the cool thing about it was, well, again, those things make me super sweaty and nervousy, but hands down, like all of the parents and the families, like they needed that. They needed it because going to college in a pandemic is scary and it's overwhelming. And if you can have someone calming you down where you can like actually see them and you can actually see what they are trying to show you, like the videos that we created that showed them like what it looks like at Gardner Point right now, like the temp checks, like all of that stuff was so important for them to be able to see it, to wrap their mind around it. Yeah. So that was really helpful. We've done little bitty things like where like LaDawn had a wild hair one day and she's like, man, my kids haven't made their FSAIDs. And I was like, I got a batch of kids that haven't done their FSAIDs. Like, she's like, let's have a quick call on Saturday morning. And I was like, okay. So I put on my shirt and she put on her shirt and we did a quick FSAID call with them. We're using it. I mean, like the chef reps doing their live cooking, the virtual throwdown competition, that virtual competition that we did for our students. That was like, I think one of the coolest uses so far. Yeah. Of this technology. Our accepted student days, those were cool. I mean, we've done so much recruiting wise with these, and sometimes they're big and they're bigger than you expect. And you just see all those tiles and it gets like so exciting. Yeah. And sometimes it's small, but it's recorded and you can send it out to everybody else like later on. So I don't know, it's been really great.
Absolutely. Well, and again, as we talk about those events, for anybody that's watching this, one Saturday a month, Sarah and LaDawn Johnson do something that's called Coffee Talk, which is actually a Facebook Live. So, that's another type of virtual engagement that we haven't even really touched on, but we use a lot in the Facebook Live and the YouTube Live as well. And they have a discussion with parents, Coffee Talk for Parents, about, their students that are looking to go to college. So I definitely would encourage you to check that out. Last thing I want to talk about now that we sort of have gone through the recruiting part is what sort of virtual engagement are you using when it comes to the retention? So obviously we have like the clubs and things like that, which is good. What else or what else can you dive into on that?
Well, that's funny that you bring that up because like when I said that I wasn't an early adopter to the video side, that's kind of like partially a lie. Like, cause like I was FaceTiming kids like since for forever. I've always FaceTime my students, like when they enroll with me, you know, like if they're stuck on something, I'll be like, well, I can't see what you're seeing. What are you seeing? Like, just FaceTime me real quick and I'll see what I can do to help you.
Yeah.
You know, or I had girls that were like showing me their prom dresses and FaceTiming me in like right before they were going to prom, you know, back in the day, like when they actually had prom. So yeah, I FaceTime my families like often, like and I use that even more as a retention tool. I'm very lucky to have that as an opportunity. But I've used Zoom too for retention purposes. You know, sometimes like a kid might not have minutes, but they can do, like if they're connected to Wi-Fi, they can do a video call, which that's kind of cool. I had a kid that was in West Africa visiting family right before the September start. And we needed to get her through her stuff. So we did a whole bunch of video calls with her.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool too, to meet them where they're at and support them. And I've built such a good relationship with students that like, I kind of work crazy, as everybody probably knows, but like I've had kids, you know, call me, you know, like 9:30 at night on FaceTime, sobbing their eyes out because they're just experiencing something terrible too. So it's just a way to share your life and your world with them. I don't know, to provide them with the support they need.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Human to human connection.
That's what it's about. You know, I think that connection is so important. And especially in this time that we're in right now, you know, that we can still have that connection. And I think it also shows support. You know, I think one of the biggest pieces of advice, that I can give is, you know, be flexible, because everything that we're doing in this is things that we can use down the road. But these are things that support our students and their families. And at the end of the day, that's one of the reasons that I still work here, is because, you know, we've always had that tradition at Sullivan University, as we always went the extra mile, and it felt like family. And I think that we can continue to support our families and our mission by being adoptive of some of these different types of technologies and using them. So, Sarah, I really appreciate your time today. Any closing thoughts? Anything else that you'd like to share?
I mean, the only thing that I would say is like, be you, be authentic, be real, because they can pick up on that, you know, just like when you're in a one-on-one interview face-to-face, which is how I started out, you know, on campus. It's the same thing virtually, like just be you, be real, be professional, and find the tools that work best for you, and be open to sharing your thoughts with your teammates and your colleagues, like things that are working for you, things that you're like struggling with. If you need like someone to like practice what Google Meet looks like do it. I mean, that's just so that you're not like nervous to use the technology. So yeah, so that's what I would say. That's it.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Sarah. I'll look forward to talking with you again soon.
Bye.